Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios, Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, we continue our election 2013 coverage. Of course, tonight, if you're watching tonight, only 8 days remaining until the final election. Most eyes are focused on the mayoral race, but perhaps in many ways just as important, who will lead the Boston City Council. And tonight we are continuing our series of mini debates with the candidates running at large. Last week we had 4 candidates, including 2 of the incumbents. Tonight, 4 of the challengers, and you'll meet them. We'll talk about the issues and help you decide who to vote for on Election Day. All that and more tonight on Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Heisler, your host. Tonight we continue our election 2013 coverage with a look at the at-large Boston City Council race, of course, with several Boston City councilors giving up their seats to run for mayor. It's opened some spaces and a large crowd running in the preliminary. The top 8 finalists going on to the final, and tonight you'll meet 4 of them. We met 4 last week, and tonight in this first half, joining me, she is a mother, a teacher, a successful business person from Dorchester. Annissa Essaibi George joins us, and nice to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. And also joining us, a familiar face, former Boston City Council president, one-time mayoral candidate from South Boston, Michael Flaherty. And Michael, nice to have you here. Thanks both of you for coming in and joining us tonight. Well, in some ways it seems you both did better than many people might have thought you would have, and for different reasons. And maybe let's start there. Annissa, a lot of people weren't familiar with you, except perhaps in your local neighborhood and Dorchester there. How did you, I won't say sneak through, because a lot of people didn't know anything about you.
But, no, I'm very proud of my success. Thank you very much. No, out of the 19 candidates and some early insider polls, I was certainly tagged not to make it into the top 8, and I was very happy to prove those insiders wrong and finished a very strong 7th. It's incredible good fun. I forgot all of that competitive edge I had back from my days playing softball and coaching softball, and very excited to be in that top 8, and I'm certainly in good company with Michael, and we have our own little competition going on with our...
They weren't my...
and that's why we have you here tonight.
They weren't my polls, by the way, because I know she's out there working hard, and a great, great family from Dorchester.
You don't live too far away, but of course, Michael, 2 years ago, you attempted to come back, ended up 5th. And of course, the election is still 8 days away, but in the prelim, you showed very well, ended up 2nd. What was different this time? What changed?
Well, obviously a completely different dynamic this time around, particularly that there was a race for mayor, and the incumbents were not running as a slate, and also there were 2 openings. So I looked at long and hard and said that I could recommit to the city in public office. I think if there's ever a year where you can make an argument where experience will matter, particularly when we're ushering in a brand new administration. There's lots of excitement around the fact that we get an opportunity to elect a new mayor, but at the same time, there's lots of anxiety. We're going to have new cabinet members, new superintendents, new commissioners, things like that. That's going to cause a lot, and I think that people recognize my skill set, my experience, particularly with respect to the legislative branch of city government, that I'll be a steady hand at a time when we're transitioning and bringing in a new era of mayoral politics. So.
Well, and so somewhat of the old, the new.
I'm happy I'm the old. I'm the new and he's the old. No, and I think that with all the changes happening, that someone with my energy and my skill set, my experiences, can add to someone who's had the experience at City Hall. And I think that that would create a great dynamic at City Hall, at the City Council for us. And using my experiences over the last, 15 to 20 years in the community and teaching will add some great value to the City Council as well.
Well, you won't get, in all likelihood, I'm assuming you won't get a chance to vote on it, and but one of the issues that's really been causing a lot of interest is certainly the whole police arbitration award. And if you were there, what would you do? Would you vote for that, the award, the arbitrator given 25% potentially, and I'm playing a little devil's advocate here, $80 million.
Playing a troublemaker or devil's advocate?
Depending upon who you talk to, could it be even more? Do you vote for that? If
I do.
Annissa
I do.
Essaibi
Very
George
happily.
Yeah, you have no qualms, not worried that it will lead to the financial ruin of the city.
No, I think that if we don't vote for it, that it leads to some greater trouble. We've spent, the Boston Police Department with their negotiating team, with the city, spent the last 4 years, plus years negotiating this contract, 24 sessions, then to a neutral arbiter. At some point, we have to say, this is the end. We have to respect the men and women of the Boston Police Department and move on with the business of the city.
Michael, you've been in a hot spot before,
Sure, yeah.
but it's always nice to have union support, but some people have qualms about this, including some, financial people with the city.
Right, hotspots are like hugs on the Boston City Council, Joe, you know that. Let me first say that our police officers deserve a contract. They deserve a raise. They do phenomenal work. I had a front row seat with them as an assistant district attorney in Roxbury, East Boston, Charlestown District Court. So I know they work extremely hard. The percentages really, quite frankly, don't bother me. What bothers me is the way that they're spread out and the way that this contract is backloaded. I think being backloaded, it doesn't do justice to the young officers that are patrolling our streets. Mm-hmm. It also doesn't do any justice to those that are retirement ready, that only have maybe 6 months, a year and a half. They're not going to get into year 4, 5, and 6, which is where the step increases are and where a lot of the retro is hidden. And furthermore, it actually, I think it does a huge disservice to our next mayor, who will be completing their first term and starting to look at their budget in their budget priorities. And the back end of this contract could choke a horse.
So you'd rather vote on it that they voted through now, so that it's clear whoever comes in, whether the new mayor, the new councilors, you know what you're dealing with?
No, I mean, obviously you get elected to make tough decisions. So if this matter is before me when and if I get sworn in, I would argue that they would have to take a look at readjusting and spreading those percentages out evenly out throughout the entire 6-year contract, number one. Two, you know me, Joe, and you know I'm a stickler for mandatory random drug and alcohol testing. The hue and cry, and we called for it, and we secured it in the firefighter contract. We need to get that in the police contract, not for punitive purposes, but for treatment and recovery. We have officers that are racing through our streets, making life and death decisions, whether to discharge their firearm, search warrants, stop searches and seizures.
So put some conditions on it.
Actually, mandatory random drug and alcohol should have been in this contract, and it wasn't. So when I say this contract is flawed on multiple levels, it's the way that the percentages are spread out, and it's back-ended, and it doesn't contain mandatory random drug and alcohol.
I'm assuming you're a member of the Boston Teachers Union,
I'm a
right?
very proud member of the BTU. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. But what I'd say with this contract issue is, does arbitration now become part of negotiation? And I think that that's the wrong step to make. When things go to arbitration, sometimes they come out looking great, sometimes they don't, but we need to respect the process, and that's where I am with this.
So take the best and leave the rest.
And as a rule, Joe, I support binding arbitration as a rule, and also as an attorney, but in this particular instance, the young, newer officers and retirement-ready officers are getting a raw deal here. This is not evenly distributed throughout 6 years. It also doesn't apply to all. I want a contract that's fair to all of our officers, whether they've been on the job for 6 months or 6 years, or whether they've been on the job and they're ready to retire. They deserve to be treated fairly throughout all of the ranks.
So then how do we fix the negotiating process?
Do you want to work that out after? Or?
It should be happening before it goes to arbitration, because like Michael, I support binding arbitration, and I think that's where those adjustments should have been made. They weren't. Now we need to move forward.
And I like in this situation, Joe, it's a good analogy. I like in this situation, the council's now in the situation, if you can make a baseball analogy, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs, full count, you're being asked to make 1 pitch.
Should they vote before the election?
Well, I personally would love the opportunity to vote on it myself, but I think it's time to wrap this up.
Vote before?
Yes, they should. And if you remember, Joe, that during the DNC, the last major contract, I actually had to call a special session on Sunday to ratify the police contract because they needed to get paid before the show went on.
Well, and you made the baseball analogy, and I want to shift gears a little bit. how do you? Have you had a hard time? Has it put you at an advantage or disadvantage? The fact of course, the mayoral race has sucked up a lot of the action, but now the Red Sox, my God, that's all anyone's thinking about. Does it make it tough for you to get through, and does that hurt or help you?
Well, we just came from a forum at Hibernian Hall in Dudley Square, and the turnout was incredible. You'd never know there was a Red Sox game going on. On a personal note, I've got 4 young boys at home. My husband is happy to stay home and watch the Sox while I'm
and they're
out
all
campaigning.
glued to the set, right? Oh, Mom's on TV.
No, I come home.
Change the station.
I come home from a forum, and my husband asks me if I watch the mayor's debate. But I just came home from my own forum.
Michael, tough to get through.
And I've been in elections when you've been the focal point, and I've also been in elections where it's been overshadowed by other races, in particular the mayor's race. Interestingly enough, and I've talked about this. 12 people ran for mayor and 19 people ran for city council at large. It's been the biggest and most diverse fields of candidates for both offices, and you probably have a better idea as to how many years that's been.
Decades.
And interestingly enough, I subscribe to anyone, and I respect and commend anyone that puts their name on the ballot. Annissa, put your name on the ballot. She's out there. She's working extremely hard. She's got a network of friends. She's got some excitement about her candidacy. And that said, there's been so many candidates, both for mayor and at large, that we had one at large from 19 candidates. You got a minute and a half opening, right? So the microphone doesn't come around for 27 minutes.
Okay,
So it gets rounded
here's
up.
your chance. State your case and be succinct. But what makes you different, Michael? You've been there, done this, but in this field 8, what makes you unique from all the other candidates? And then I want to give you the.
I mean, as a lifelong resident of Boston, a father of 4 children, set of twins. She's going to beat me with triplets, but I got twins. And also grew up, obviously, coaching youth sports, being involved in civic associations, being a grassroots and community organizer, being a former assistant district attorney in Suffolk County District Courthouse, and also serving on the city council 10 years and 5 as council president. I have the experience. I know what the job is all about. I think that there's a time now when we're ushering in a new administration to have experienced members of the city council focused on the people's business while we're working with the new administration to identify mutual priorities that are going to benefit our neighborhoods. I can make a strong case that I deserve to be reelected, and I think the preliminary results showed, I think there's 255 precincts, close to 170 or so I finished either first or second, and all 22 wards I finished in the top 4. People know me, they know that I know the city, they know that I work hard, and I'm looking forward to going back to work for all of our neighborhoods.
All right, Annissa.
And I'm asking for 1 of 4 votes, and what separates me from the pack is in this race of 8, I am the only mother, and I'm the only mother of triplets for sure, but I'm the only mother in the race. I'm also the only Boston Public School teacher. I've been a teacher for 12 years at East Boston High, and I own a great business on Dorchester Ave called the Stitch House. And having those perspectives, in addition to my years of community work, being a former Civic Association president, being very active on the Dorchester Day Parade Committee, being on a board of directors for a health center, all of those experiences, I think, qualify me for a seat at the big kids table, especially the teaching piece. We've spent so much time as a city talking about education, and to have someone who's had 12 years of experience in the classroom that can have a great and engaging conversation about what needs to happen in our schools, especially our high schools, I think I'd be an invaluable asset to the council, and I hope that your viewers think so too.
Well, and of course, education has taken, in many ways, center stage, in part because of the mayoral race. But does that help you in your quest here?
It absolutely helps me guide some of that conversation. But again, the conversations that are happening on many other campaigns are about the assignment process, about neighborhood schools, and what I want to talk about is our high schools, because we have 25 city schools that can use a huge dose of energy and improvement, and also some publicity and good press on what's been working well in the high schools. I'm proud of my years of service at East Boston High. We've accomplished some great things there, and I think with a little bit more help and a few tweaks to what we're doing in the schools, we can have success stories across the board, and I'd like to be a part of that. Have you gotten involved in the mayor's race? Have you endorsed anybody in the mayor's race, incidentally? I'm childhood friends with Marty Walsh, and I met my husband through him. No, I'm not in a tough spot. That's an easy one. I wouldn't have my family, my kids, if it wasn't for Marty, so I am very happy and proud to vote for him. And I think that it's a great opportunity when you get to vote for your friend for mayor.
Yep.
So, and John Conley has some great merits
Yep.
to be mayor of Boston, and I'm friendly with him, but Marty and I go way back, and I'm very proud to
I hear
vote
you.
for
Of
him.
course, you served with John for one term,
Yep.
if I recall
Yeah, and obviously,
correctly.
I know them both. I
Yeah.
can work with them both. I'm publicly neutral in this race, and as I've said to both, 4 years ago, I was in the Lions Den with pork chop panties. Neither one of you guys lifted a finger. You guys are on your own. I have my own race to run, and I know that what happens when you meddle in other races, nothing good comes from it. So I'm working extremely hard to get back in a position to be helpful for all of our residents, and also to be helpful and to work with the new mayor of Boston. I'm excited. This is an exciting time for our city, and I look forward to November 5th. It's a week from tomorrow, so for your viewers to get out there and vote.
Well,
and ask
you
for
got
what they're
about
for.
30 seconds. Look right into the camera, and if you want to give a final pitch, please do. Why don't we start with you, Annissa
Sure.
Essaibi George.
Absolutely, thank you. My name is Annissa Essaibi George. I am number 3 on the ballot, and I hope you will consider me for one of your 4 votes for City Council at large. I'm a very proud mother, teacher, and small business owner, and looking forward to having my seat at the big kids table.
And I'm
Michael
Michael
Flaherty.
Flaherty. I'm number 4 on the ballot, and I look forward to working closely with people from all across our city. I'm excited to be in this race. It's a challenging and exciting time for our city. I have the experience, having been a member of the Boston City Council, but also being a father and a lifelong resident of our city. I think that counts. I think people, again, know me. They know my work ethic. They know how much I care about making a difference, and we need to make improvements. We need to improve our Boston public schools. We need to make our streets safer, and we also need to fight to put people back to work. And quite frankly, Boston's becoming too expensive. We're losing the middle class. We're Manhattanizing ourselves. We need to do a better job of redefining affordable housing so that working families can afford to stay and live in the neighborhoods they were born and raised in.
All right. Thank you both.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Michael Flaherty.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Essaibi George.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to have you here. When we come back with more of Talk to the Neighborhoods, well, you'll meet 2 more at-large city council candidates. Michelle Wu, Martin Keogh join us. I'm Joe Heisler, your host. Tonight, the Boston City Council at large, largely overshadowed by the mayor's race, but finally getting some respect. And tonight, we're helping to add to that, talking with 4 of the 8 candidates running at large. Last week we had 4, tonight 4 more, and in this segment, the 4th and 5th place finishers in the preliminary race. And I'm pleased to have joining me on my immediate left, Michelle Wu. She is a former public official, at least appointed public official, working for the city, and an attorney and an activist, and also another attorney, as the case may be.
We need more attorneys in the council.
From West Roxbury, who's goes back some years with some experience in the Boston City Council as an aide, Marty Keogh. And I want to thank you both for coming in. Michelle?
Thank you, Joe.
Marty, nice
Great
to
to
have
be
you here. Well, I got to start off this way because I've asked everybody how you've managed to kind of break through, because now not just the mayor's race, now the Boston Red Sox, and talk about sucking up the oxygen. How have you, and have you found unique ways to try and get your message across to people, because they're kind of looking elsewhere? And Michelle, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think the key, especially when people aren't paying attention, is face-to-face contact. And the great thing was that early on, when there were so many mayoral candidates, we could really piggyback off of their events. So I saw Marty at many mayoral forums and all the other candidates. So we really tried to be wherever the voters are. And my campaign has been focusing especially on field efforts. So knocking on doors, making phone calls, getting people to talk to their friends. Because when you hear that from someone that you trust and you respect, it goes a lot farther than.
And do they say, Michelle who? No, I'm just teasing. But when you're going up to people, and I obviously both been active, but it's a big city, and a lot of stuff going on, and information overload, and what have you found most effective when you're talking to people?
I start with my story, and I start with what I've gone through in my family, what I want to see for the city, and then you sit back and listen. And people have some great ideas. Everybody has seen so much and has such high hopes for the city of Boston in this next chapter.
Marty?
And for me, the same thing. It's face-to-face contact, especially when I thought that everybody in Hyde Park and West Roxbury knew who I was, but boy, what a surprise! I still won both Hyde Park and West Roxbury, but I said, geez, I think 74% of the people didn't know who I was across the city, and it was probably reflective in West Roxbury. Michelle probably got just about the same numbers, but it's all face-to-face contact. You have to let the people know who you are and why you're running.
Is it? I mean, you two are the closest. You're the 4th and 5th place finishers. The top 4 go on and get elected. Does it make it tough, kind of appearing?
I wish it was that close. If it's that close, I was going to hit it with all these really tough questions, but I think Michelle's all set. I need the vote.
It's been a really, I think, especially in the at-large race, it's been a really positive experience all around. We've gotten to know each other, and everybody brings such a unique story to the race that it's been great learning about all of our fellow candidates on the trail.
Well, let's do that, and then let's talk some issues. For our viewers that may not know you, and I know you've both been so busy and running around and meeting people, but what makes you unique from the other 7 candidates that are running in this race? And Marty, let's start with you this time.
Well, Joe, I'm a lifelong resident of Boston. I was born in Roxbury in the Mission Hill Projects. I grew up in Hyde Park, and I live in West Roxbury now with my wife and my son Nolan, and I'm happy to announce the birth of my new baby girl.
Congratulations.
Oh, it was great. And what an uplifting thing to happen, especially when my father passed away a week earlier. But I came from a family, a large family, 3 brothers and 3 sisters, single-parent family. My mom raised us all. My dad went a different direction, and again, I miss him dearly, but he wasn't around when I was growing up. And so I went to the Boston Public Schools. I think I know a lot about the Boston Public Schools because I actually went to them, but I also dropped out. I got my GED, went to Boston College, went to law school to help kids who get in trouble like I did. I think what separates me from the pack is that there are other candidates in the race that have children, but they're all grown-up children. I've got 2 kids that are going to be ready to go into the Boston Public Schools in the next 2 years, and I worry about the same things everybody else in Boston worries about. Where they're going to go to schools? Are the streets safe? Are they going to be able to afford to live here when they're old enough?
Michelle?
Yeah, I'm in this race for family. I am the daughter of immigrants and have been through a lot with my family, especially in the last few years. I've been the legal guardian of my youngest sister for the last 6 or so years. My mom's been struggling with some mental health issues, so I've been very active as a legal guardian in the Boston Public Schools. And I've also owned a family business, gone through the process of permitting and licenses in one city, and then worked for Mayor Menino to really streamline restaurant permitting in Boston. And I'm still taking care of my mom and getting her access to health care at the neighborhood level, at the large institutional level. I've had the chance to work inside government too, and have seen that when you are in city government, this is the level of government where you can accomplish things. And I've gotten to help business owners, help restaurant owners, bring food trucks to Boston. And so I have a lot of ideas and can't wait to advocate for residents to bring more of those resources down to the neighborhood level.
Well, and a lot of the issues that have popped up have been more specific perhaps to the mayor's race, but the most unbelievable issue is kind of plopped on the Boston City Council's plate. And you won't be there yet to vote for it, either one of you, but it does raise an interesting question. This I'm talking about, of course, the police arbitration award, depending upon who you talk to, 25% raise, $80 million out of the city's coffers, and potentially millions of dollars more because it kind of raises the bar for all unions. You're in there. You vote. Do you vote for that contract?
I said I would vote no on the contract. For me, it's an issue of limited resources, and I know that we want our city jobs to be good jobs. We want becoming a police officer to be a pathway to a stable economic situation. You can raise a family on that salary, and the numbers are a little bit misleading. It's not an $80 million incremental cost. The city has put aside some part of that, but for every $40 million extra, that's coming out of some other priority, whether it's education or parks.
That won't make you any friends amongst the police union, though. You're worried about that, to cross the unions?
I think the biggest point for me is that I want the deals to get done across the table, because when it goes to an outside arbitrator, there are pieces of the contract that start to come back, and neither side really quite wants it that way. But when you can get it done across the table before sending it out, that's how you should do it.
Regardless, Marty, what about you? I put you in a tough spot, doesn't it?
No, I'll put it to you this way. When it comes to the police, fire, EMS, the people who save our lives, save our homes, it's not a question of a yes or no for me. It's going to be yes, period. Because when it comes to saving money or saving us, I'll pick saving us, saving our lives, and saving our homes any day of the week. The problem with the contract, and again, Michelle hit on a bunch of very valid points, that the 25.4% raise is a little bit, those numbers are misleading. It's much lower than what that is. And I've only gotten this from the BPPA because I'm not privy to what the administration has to say about it. But the money is there to pay for this contract. The big problem I have with it, it's a matter of process, it's a matter of transparency. If the mayor's office and the administration have been dealing with the police and the fire and the EMS fairly from day one and equitably from day one, we wouldn't be in this mess. I'd like to be able to vote on it. I'd like to be able to vote yes, but I also think that the city council now has to vote on this as soon as possible because I think the
Vote now, vote before the election?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the
yeah.
voters deserve to know.
This is an issue that's brought up to, I'm sure, Michelle as well, a lot when I go out and talk to people. They talk about the race, and I get a lot of people who are in favor and a lot of people who say no, but they don't really seem to know why they're in favor or why they're against.
Well, and just to come back to you, of course, the same issue that was kind of presented to at least Marty Walsh in the mayor's race. Don't you potentially put the city in a bad spot if you vote for it without, requiring some kind of give back?
In this case here, now I think the problem we're going to have is that the police on the front line, the police at the end of the end of the line there, they're not going to be dealt with equitably. I think that the guys in the middle are going to get taken care of. We need to do something for the young guys and the older guys. That is a problem. That's one problem I see with this arbitrator's award. But speaking as an attorney, a deal's a deal. You had the opportunity to negotiate it, you failed, you agreed to go to an arbitrator, and that's you said, hey, let's just say the award came back and it was a 5% increase. I probably would have the police call up and say, you can't vote for that contract. Well, no, it went the other way, and I'm going to say, I'm going to vote for it. The problem, is it going to bust the city? I don't think so, because from my understanding, they've set aside money to pay for this contract. But we've got to stop this from happening again in the future, because it happened with the firefighters just a couple of years ago. It's got to stop. And, Michelle's an attorney, I'm an attorney. Let's get the attorneys and the council to square this thing away.
It raises an interesting point. Of course, we've been so accustomed to having Mayor Menino at the helm, and then some people would say, thank goodness. But Boston has a strong mayor form of government, and it puts quite a bit of power in the mayor's hands. Will that balance change when either of you is elected? Are you willing to take on the powers that be? I mean, I think that's one of the things people want to see. They want to see more leadership out of the council. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes, and I think that the council does have the power to play a bigger role in the decision-making process of the city. A lot of it is really involving citizens and involving residents in the process. The budget negotiation process can be made much more public and can bring in the voices of all the neighborhoods. The council is that direct representative of the people, and if you really engage people, reach out to them, I think it could play a much bigger role.
Marty, you
I agree with
willing
Michelle.
to tilt at some windmills here, so to speak?
I'd love to see the council terms go exactly with the mayor's terms, 4-year terms. I'd like to see a charter change in that. And I'd love to see the council become stronger, but I don't think the next mayor is going to sign that charter change when it gets recessed.
Okay, well, here's your chance. Here's some questions. Get rid of the BRA? Get rid of the BRA?
No.
No?
I don't think we need to get rid of the BRA, but I do think we need to have a requirement that the board issue a written opinion that really explains all the factors that go into their decisions.
And what we do need a planning board. There has to be a check and balance. The mayor cannot have complete control of the BRA by itself. And again, it goes back to transparency. It's the number one problem we have with the administration is that there's not enough transparency. If we have a planning board there that the city council, and I think Michelle would agree, is that if we could have power to appoint or approve people going on there, I think we'll have a check and balance there. But the BRA is very necessary for the progress of the city.
Okay, how about the new police commissioner? Of course, Ed Davis is stepping down. You already announced that. The new mayor likely to appoint. How important is it to have a person of color in there, kind of given the level of, there's been a lot of back and forth with Mamleo and questions about how reflective the police force is of the city as a whole. Important to have a person of color in that?
I think it's important to have the right guy for the job. I don't think it matters what color that person is, but I do think it's important that the police department reflect the diversity of the city. And I've talked to many black police officers. I said, who would you like to be the commissioner? And many white officers. And I won't say the guys, the superintendent's names that they've mentioned, but there's a couple of guys that I'd like to see be considered for that. Gross. I'm not going to get into the names, but
Yeah,
Michelle, how important is that? Of course, some people suggest we're in a post-racial society here, that race doesn't matter so much. But depending upon who you talk to, and a lot of the violence has gone on in inner city neighborhoods in the community of color, and they're saying, perhaps the case for more officers, if not indeed more leadership of color.
Yeah, I'd say regardless of who the next commissioner is, that person should have a few key characteristics, and one is a commitment to diversity in all senses of that word throughout the ranks of the department at different levels of the department. Two is really addressing the gaps in access that certain parts of the city and certain neighborhoods have to public safety, to opportunity. And whoever that person is, I hope that it will be a public process by which that person is chosen, and there will be some community input in that as well. But that person holds a lot of responsibility and needs to be a careful decision.
Joe, we need to promote women too. I mean, that's another, where we're lacking diversity. We don't have enough women in positions of power as well.
Well, I guess is that an endorsement?
Absolutely, yes. I want to nominate Michelle Wu to be the Commissioner of Boston. Thank you. Maybe I'll win now.
Well, and of course, the Boston Public Schools, there's been a lot of talk about making changes. Of course, a lot of high-minded rhetoric is going back to Mayor Menino's first term, judge me by the schools. Is there the will there to really make the difference, and what role would you like to play in that? Start with you, Michelle.
As I said, I'm the legal guardian of my youngest sister who's still in BPS now, and so it's something that's very personal to my whole family. There are kids that are being underserved in many of our schools. There are some great schools in the district, and we need to do a better job of making sure parents know about them. But there is a huge lack of resources, and I remember being on those parent councils and having to raise tens of thousands of dollars just so that there would be enough money for supplies and paper in classrooms.
Something wrong with the system the way it is now?
I think we need to make better use of data and technology so that we can streamline some of the processes in the central office, push more of the funding down to the school level, and really bring in partnerships from the community, businesses, universities, organizations to surround individual schools and help them.
And what about neighborhood schools, the whole reassignment process? Do you favor going back to that?
I think the new process is a step in the right direction. I think the more we can cut down the distance that kids have to travel to get to school, that parents have to travel to get to meetings, the better. The problem is that certain neighborhoods don't have access to quality schools all around, and we need to fix that first before we move to a complete neighborhood model.
Marty, start backwards on that. Neighborhood schools.
Absolutely, you have to have neighborhood schools. And the reason I get into the politics 22 years ago was because of neighborhood schools and the Boston Public Schools. I am a Boston Public School student. I think there's only one other person running that can actually say that. The schools need more resources. They need more money. But I think we don't have to get the money by adding. I think we can cut in certain areas in. Like Michelle, everything she said was right on point. We need partnerships with the universities and colleges to come in and give a helping hand. But we've got to have more sports. We've got to have more arts. We've got to have more music. And we definitely have to have a vocational school for that kid who just doesn't want to go to college, but we can't let him go out without getting a job. If I get elected, my thing is I want to decrease the dropout rate, get all those programs in there, and when a kid leaves school, I want him to either have a job or go to college.
Okay, we've got just a couple of minutes left. Give me some insight. What's your strategy for breaking through? Marty, you're right on the edge. You came in fifth in the prelim. Of course, the final is a whole nother thing. How do you break through to climb up over the edge to at least finish fourth and get elected?
I just got to meet more people, Joe. And I've been, for the last 6 weeks, I've been going to train stations. I've been going door to door. I've been doing this. I've been doing all the old things that we used to do back then, and all the new things with the twittering and the tweeting and all that stuff like that. It's crazy. My mom is on the phone talking to all her friends. I came in fifth. Michelle came in fourth. There's a mountain between us. I would love to make it the top four, but I wouldn't want to knock Michelle up. I think she's great. But I'm hoping that if I don't make it, that somebody nominates her to be the superintendent of Boston Police. And then I can come right in. But it's a lot of hard work, Joe. And I'll tell you, when the campaign's over, I'm going to be so happy to be able to play with my little boy and my new little girl.
Well, it's a big task. And Michelle, I remember you coming in here, maybe it was January. I can't even remember. It was a long time ago. You've been at this a long time. And I think we asked you then, why would you want to get into a business like this? What were you thinking?
Marty Keogh wants to know, what were you thinking?
But you're almost there.
Yeah, just a week to go now.
What takes you up over the top?
Yeah, I think Marty's exactly right. It's getting to people, and we all know what you have to do. You have to meet as many voters as possible and then get them to vote on election day. So We're at tea stations, we're at Dunkin' Donuts across the city. We're asking every one of our supporters to reach out to 10, 15, 20 of their friends. I think it's about finding every volunteer that perfect role for them. You know, some people love to hold a sign outside. Some people like to knock on doors. Some people would never knock on a door. And really getting everybody engaged and plugged in every single neighborhood of the city.
Well, and you're both young and energetic. The question a lot of people ask is, would young voters in the city become engaged? Of course, there's no question that seniors have a great voting history. Public employees have a great voting history. Those with an interest in neighborhoods, but there's a lot of young people that have moved into the city. Some of them not here that long. What do you say to them? What do you say to them to get them charged up enough to actually come out? Because I think that's the great unknown in this election. And if they were to turn out in large numbers, who knows? They could change the race in many ways. And how do you? Let's start with you, Michelle, and come back to Marty.
Yeah, a third of our city's population is between the ages of, I think it's 20 and 34, and a lot of those young people, I see it when I'm out at those tea stations passing out flyers. A lot of the young people are going straight to work. They don't want to take any information about any campaign. It's about explaining to them why it matters. And a lot of people see why voting for president matters, voting for governor matters. But when it comes to city council, we are the level of government that's taking care of trash pickup in the schools and making sure that when you need that handicap spot in front of your house because your parent is getting surgery or something that's very immediate and personal to your life, you call your city councilor. And so it's really laying out why it matters in all the big and the small ways. You know, having a 24-hour city, having access to happy hour, having access to internet in different parts of the city. These are all things that the city council should advocate for.
Do you support extending the closing hours for restaurants, liquor establishments, that kind of thing?
I do. I don't want to turn it into New York City, but I think it should be extended a little bit later. And I'd like to see at some point that if they do extend it, you cut the alcohol off so people get a chance to sober up or figure out how they're going to get home, you know. But New York City isn't the way to go. I don't think we're ready for that, even though, like Michelle said, there's a large young population here. But we still have a lot of, my parents, my mother and her friends that use the city roads as well, so.
It's not just them. Okay, we've got just a minute or two left. I want to give you a chance. Look right into the camera. Give a final pitch, Marty. Why don't we start with you?
Well, Joe, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. My name is Martin Keogh. I'm running for the Boston City Council at large. In our race, you can vote for 4 people. I'm asking you for one of your 4 votes, and I'm going to make it really easy. You can forget what I look like and forget my name, but I'm number 1 on the ballot, and that's all you need to remember. If you elect me, I will be looking out for our seniors, for our families, but especially for our kids. I've got 2 young children that are ready to grow up in this world. I want them to be safe, I want them to be able to go to school here, and I want them to be able to get jobs here. And none of that's going to happen unless we start making changes in city government, and that's what I'm looking forward to, is making changes in city government that help our kids, our families, and our seniors. So I hope you vote for me.
Again, Martin Keogh and Michelle Wu.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yep. My name is Michelle Wu. I'm running for one of the 4 City Council at-large seats. I'm number 6 on the ballot, and I asked for one of your 4 votes. For me, this is about family. It's about what I've gone through supporting my family, seeing how city government is the level of government that affects schools, that affects healthcare often, that affects restaurants and how neighborhoods look. And also having been on the inside of city government and knowing that you can make a big difference with ideas. I put 50 ideas up on my website, michelleforboston.com. Hope you'll check it out. But most importantly, I think the role of a city councilor is to provide constituent services and be that source of support, that source of information that you can pick up the phone and call anytime. So I will be out in the neighborhoods. I'll be an advocate for every single family in Boston. I respectfully ask for one of your 4 votes.
All right, thank you both. Again, Michelle Wu.
Thank you.
Martin Keogh.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're watching Talk to the Neighborhoods. We're on tonight and every week at this same time. Next week, in a special program note, tune in to us on a special edition of Talk to the Neighborhoods starting Tuesday at 8:30. That's Election Day. We'll kick off our election 2013 coverage. 2.5 hours, all the results, analysis, some commentary, and a lot of fun, too. We hope you'll join us on next Tuesday, November 5th, Election Day. And please make sure and vote, not just for mayor, but for the Boston City Council as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.